Hello students, this is a short video and introduction on the diencephalon. Okay, I will explain you what is diencephalon, where it is located. This becomes necessary. Okay, I mean to say this video became necessary to tell you about the diencephalon. The reason being that none of the part of the diencephalon except a small part of it is seen on the ventral surface. Otherwise, the most of the diencephalon is hidden between the two cerebral hemispheres. So the diencephalon, broadly speaking, is the thalamus and the hypothalamus. Though there are many other parts, but at present you understand that diencephalon means thalamus and hypothalamus. And these thalamus and hypothalamus, they are located between the two cerebral hemisphere. That means they are surrounded by the right and left cerebral hemisphere, and this is located between the midbrain and cerebrum. Let us see here. Now this part here is the midbrain. This is the midbrain, this is the pons, and this is cerebellum. Now it is located between the midbrain below and the cerebral hemisphere above. So this is the cerebral hemisphere. This section is the mid-sagittal section passing through the corpus callosum, septum pellucidum, and the fornix. And just below the fornix, this part is the thalamus, and below this part is the hypothalamus, through which is attached the pituitary gland, hypophysis cerebri or hypophysis cerebri. So this part is the diencephalon. As I said that this diencephalic part is located above the midbrain and below that of the cerebral hemisphere. So let us go to the next slide. See its location. Now, as I said that the most of the part of the diencephalon or thalamus and hypothalamus are hidden, surrounded by cerebral hemisphere. Only this small part, which is part of the inter-peduncular fossa. These are the crus cerebri, right and left crus cerebri, and then this is the optic tract, optic chiasma. This is the tuberosinium, infundibular stalk to which the pituitary gland is attached here. This is the median eminence, mammillary body, and the posterior perforated substance. Now this part, between the two crura cerebri, or the crus, right and left crus cerebri, this part is the part of the inter-peduncular fossa, or the content of the inter-peduncular fossa, through which the third cranial nerve or oculomotor nerve is also taking origin. Now only this much part, this is the part of the hypothalamus, and hypothalamus, as I said, is the part of the diencephalon. So only this much part is on the external surface, can be otherwise the whole part of the diencephalon is hidden, and therefore it becomes necessary to tell you its position with the help of many sections passing through the cerebrum. So we will see the various sections passing through the cerebrum, which will locate the position of the diencephalon or thalamus or hypothalamus. Now the hypothalamic sulcus, this I said that it is the mid-sagittal section. The corpus callosum here above is the medial surface of the right cerebral hemisphere. Then this is septum pellucidum, this is the fornix, and then anterior commissure is here, posterior commissure will be here, and then below this thalamus you can see a dotted line I have drawn here, and this indicates the hypothalamic sulcus, which begins at the ventricular foramina and going towards the midbrain, where it is the cerebral aqueduct or the canal is situated. So this hypothalamic sulcus is a shallow sulcus which separates above or dorsal to it is the thalamus, and below this small triangular shaped structure below the hypothalamic sulcus is the hypothalamus. So this is thalamus and this is the hypothalamus. This is the optic chiasma, infundibular stalk, posterior pituitary and anterior pituitary is here. This is the site for the posterior perforated substance which we have seen in the interpeduncular fossa in the previous diagram. So this hypothalamic sulcus, as I said, divides the diencephalon into dorsal and ventral diencephalon. Now, to which I was calling as thalamus. Here you call it as a dorsal diencephalon, and below the hypothalamic sulcus you call this as a ventral diencephalon, because this is the ventral aspect of the brain. Okay. Now the dorsal diencephalon consists of the thalamus, metathalamus and epithalamus. I will tell you, thalamus you are seeing here, the other two parts metathalamus and epithalamus I will explain you in the next few slides. Okay, so don't bother right present, okay, about the metathalamus and epithalamus. Just concentrate here onto the thalamus. And below the hypothalamic sulcus, this part is called as the hypothalamus or the ventral diencephalon, and this ventral diencephalon mainly consists of the hypothalamus. There will be an other hidden part called as the subthalamus, which I will again show you after 2-3 slides. Okay, so just you remember that the diencephalon means there are two parts, dorsal diencephalon and the ventral diencephalon, separated from each other with the help of the hypothalamic sulcus. Let us see this, and this is the horizontal section. Okay, this is cut horizontally, passing through the cerebral hemisphere from right to the left cerebral hemisphere, and this section is passing through the dorsal diencephalon. And what does it mean, dorsal? That means it is passing through the thalamus, okay, not the hypothalamus. Dorsal diencephalon means thalamus. Okay, now here you can see this section, horizontal section. Okay, this is the right cerebral hemisphere, this is the left cerebral hemisphere, and in the central part between the two cerebral hemisphere, this is the site where diencephalon is located. Okay, and this section, if we see for orientation purpose, this is the corpus callosum, septum pellucidum, and this is the fornix. Okay, this is the fornix. Now this is the thalamus. It is the right thalamus and this is the left. What is thalamus? It is nothing but a nucleus which is the collection of the gray mass, that means of the neurons. So this is the right thalamus and this is the left thalamus, and in between the two thalamus, right and left, this slit-like space is nothing but the third ventricle, which communicates below this fornix with the right and left lateral ventricle. Okay, right and left lateral ventricle. So just locate the position in this horizontal section of the thalamus, okay, of the thalamus. So for right thalamus, this will be the medial surface of the right thalamus, which is facing towards this slit-like space, the third ventricle, and this is the lateral surface of the lateral boundary, you can call it as, of the thalamus, which is in connection with this band of the white matter, which is called as the internal capsule. Okay, internal. And the posterior part of the thalamus is free, it is overhanging to the superior inferior colliculi. Okay, colliculi. This is the anterior end of the hypothalamus. Okay, so just remember this structure and we will see further in the next section that laterally I have already described. It is the internal capsule which forms its limit, and medially it is the third ventricle is there, which we can see through the horizontal section. Now just to visualize the location of the diencephalon, okay, the dorsal and ventral, that is thalamus and hypothalamus. We have taken this section which is a coronal section passing through the thalamus as well as hypothalamus. Again, see this is the corpus callosum here, septum pellucidum, fornix is here, this is the right lateral ventricle, this is the left lateral ventricle, and the space between these two mass, gray mass here, it is the dorsal, okay, diencephalon, which is thalamus, and in between the two thalami, this space is nothing but the third ventricle. We have seen in the previous section also, which was horizontal. This is the coronal section. Again, laterally it is bounded by this white band of the fibers, which is called as the internal capsule. But this diagram, say this section, will also show you the presence of the hypothalamus. Here are the mammillary bodies, okay, two mammillaries bodies are seen here, and here you can see that this is the space is the third ventricle, which is not only bounded by the right and left thalamus, but it is going still downward, where here it is bounded by the hypothalamus. So this part which is present below the thalamus, this is the right hypothalamus and this is the left hypothalamus, and this is the floor of the third ventricle, okay, which is present in the interpeduncular fossa, okay, which we have already seen. So this is the third ventricle, and third ventricle on the dorsal aspect on either side is bounded by thalamus, and on the ventral side it is bounded by hypothalamus. Thus this is the ventral diencephalon and this is the dorsal diencephalon, and on either side of this it is bounded by the internal capsule. The band of the white fiber internal capsule is here, and here it is above this thalamus is bounded by the right and left lateral ventricle, and this is that corpus callosum, septum pellucidum, and this is the fornix. Now away from this internal capsule which is present on lateral side of this thalamus, these are another masses of the gray matter, okay, and here there is another mass of the gray matter, caudate nucleus. These are the lentiform nuclei on right and the left side. Here you can see the presence of a nucleus that is called as the subthalamic nucleus. I will show you again the subthalamic, which is the part of the ventral diencephalon, okay, it is part. I will show you again. So now a rough idea must be coming in your mind. Where is the location of the diencephalon? That is the mainly thalamus and the hypothalamus, hidden from right and left side by the cerebral hemisphere. Now let us come to see the parts of the dorsal diencephalon. As I said that the most important part of the dorsal diencephalon, which is present above the hypothalamic sulcus, as we have seen in the mid-sagittal section, is the thalamus. So the important and large part of the dorsal diencephalon is thalamus. But then second part of the dorsal diencephalon is the metathalamus. It is the metathalamus, and metathalamus consists of the medial and lateral geniculate body, that I will show you in a diagram, okay, medial and lateral geniculate body. The third part of the dorsal diencephalon is called as epithalamus, and it consists of many parts, okay. It consists of habenular nucleus and its commissure. That means habenular nuclei of right and left side, they are connected with each other, that is their commissure. Then there is a presence of the pineal gland, okay, posteriorly, and then close to the pineal gland is posterior, commissure, and stria, medullary, thalami. These are the various part of the epithalamus. I will try to show you the most of this part of the epithalamus, okay. So let us come to the thalamus, first part of the dorsal diencephalon, okay, and this is the thalamus. You can see here this oval shaped bodies on either side of the median plane, and they will enclose the third ventricle. See, this is the third ventricle, and this is the thalamus as we are seeing it from the posterior surface. It is overhanging part of the uh, thalamus, right and left thalamus. This is the right thalamus and this is the left, seen from the posterior aspect. This is the midbrain part here where the four colliculi are seen, a pair of superior colliculus and colliculi and a pair of inferior. Just see onto the upper and lateral aspect of this. This is the posterior end of the thalamus, which is overhanging part and called as pulvinar. And in this you can see the two swellings are seen. These two swellings, they are the medial and lateral geniculate bodies, okay, and these are called as metathalamus. So the dorsal diencephalon was divided into two parts, thalamus and metathalamus. So these are the metathalamic part here. The second part was medial and lateral geniculate body. In the oblique view you can see this is superior colliculus and this is inferior colliculus on one side, right side of, and they are located in midbrain. And then here on the undersurface, inferior surface of this thalamus, this is the thalamus, right thalamus. This is the medial geniculate body and this is the lateral geniculate body which forms the metathalamus. Let us go to the next part, and this is the epithalamus. The third part of the dorsal diencephalon, as I said, was the epithalamus, and it consists of the habenular commissure, okay, habenular commissure, which is the white fibers connecting the habenular nuclei. So this part, you see, this is first located, the pineal gland is here, okay. This is attached by a stalk on the posterior surface of the diencephalon, and it is the part of the dorsal diencephalon. And just above this stalk of the pineal gland, where I am moving this cursor, it is the habenular commissure, okay, which will connect the right and left habenular nuclei, which are still lateral to the, I mean say on either side of this median section, okay, on either, which you are not able to see here. Just we will see and learn when we will go in detail of this. This is the second part, is the pineal gland, and then there is a posterior commissure just below this pineal stalk here. This is the posterior commissure here, okay. This is the posterior, which connect again the right and left cerebral hemisphere, and stria medullary thalami. It is the band of the white fibers or tract going here. See this is called as stria medullary thalami. So these are all the part of the epithalamus: habenular nucleus and its commissure, pineal gland, posterior commissure, and stria medullary thalami. So these are the three components of the dorsal diencephalon, that is the thalamus, metathalamus, and epithalamus. Let us go to the ventral diencephalon. What are the parts of the ventral diencephalon? As I said that the ventral diencephalon is located below the subthalamic sulcus, okay? And mostly, I'm saying mainly, not mostly, mainly it consists of the hypothalamus part, okay, and there is a part which is hidden. Second part of the ventral diencephalon is the subthalamus. Now this is a coronal section, corpus callosum, septum pellucidum, and this is the fornix. These are the right and left lateral ventricle. This is the dorsal surface of the thalamus, and these two thalami, that is right and left thalami, or thalamus, they are interconnected with a connection known as the interthalamic adhesion, okay. And this is the third ventricle, okay. This is the third ventricle. Somewhere here is the location of the subthalamic, I mean to say hypothalamic sulcus, okay. And below the hypothalamic sulcus, this part, okay, this whole part is the hypothalamus, in which the third ventricle is extending and it is forming the floor of the third ventricle. But on either side of this floor of the third ventricle, that is on right side and left side, below that of the thalamus, okay, there is a presence of this gray mass, and this gray mass is the subthalamus or subthalamic nucleus, where this subthalamic nucleus which you are seeing is the part of the or a nucleus within the subthalamic region. Okay, so this consists of the ventral diencephalon, hypothalamus and subthalamus. Now